Last time out for the American Le Mans, it was at Road America. The number 2 Audi was on pole for the 500-mile race, and it was Christensen who led the race away from the start. But it wasn't long before the first incident of the race happened. Jan Magnussen tried to pass the Audi into turn 1, but ended up on the grass and dropping back into 11th position. The Saleen with Terry Borchella was leading the GTS class from the Corvettes until it hit problems. And there were problems for the 51 Panos as well. Bill Auberline had to retire after an electrical fire. The Gremlins then struck the 50 Panos with David Brabham limping around the track. Stefan Johansson ended up in the gravel trap after getting caught up to second place in the champion Audi. And there were problems also for the race leader, Frank Bieler. After replacing a puncture, the engine wouldn't start whilst in the pit lane. The number 4 Corvette was leading the GTS class now after the number 3 car had to make an extra visit to the pits. The battle for the GT lead was as hot as ever between the 22 and 23 Porsches. And after their own share of problems, it was Tom Christensen and Capello that were the eventual winners in the number 2 Audi. Tom Christensen now leads the LMP 900 championship by 2 points from teammate Capello. John Field leads the LMP 675 class, whilst Ron Fellow heads the GTS and Sasha Masson the GT class. With 4 rounds completed, that now brings the series up to the halfway point on the championship calendar. And the second half of the championship sees 2 visits to Canada before the final 3 races in the United States of America. Washington is another new race to the series, and it's a road circuit as well. And it's highly regarded as an important race for the future of the series, and it's going to provide a brilliant spectator spectacle as well as some terrific racing. Practice and qualifying sessions are always of the utmost importance at any circuit, but again here, with the series making its debut on the street circuit, everyone was on a learning curve. The 23 Porsche was setting the pace in the GT class, as is their usual way. The team sat and waited for the right time, and then 13 minutes into the qualifying session, Sasha Masson set the GT pole time that no one had an answer to.
I will not let other people pass me that easy, and I hope to make a little bit of a gap between me and the others in the beginning of the stint. At the first laps, I will push very hard for sure tomorrow, and then we see. We have to watch our tires, our engine temperature, and also our body temperature. Tomorrow is going to be very hot.
In the GTS class, it was again, as usual, the distinctive and awesome Corvettes that were making the running, but it was a little hard going. Not necessarily from a technical point of view, but certainly from the conditions the drivers were having to endure.
Our cars are incredibly hot. We're trying to get a little bit of cooler air in the car, but it's so hot right now. I think it's gone from being impossibly hot to ridiculously hot. So it's still very hot, but we're doing okay. You know, we try and condition ourselves for it, so it's not too bad.
For the 5th consecutive time this year, it was Ron Fellows that put the number 3 Corvette on pole in the GTS class, and that also makes history in the series, with 12 being the most career poles ever recorded by a driver. But it was not an easy run for him here, but as usual, this vastly experienced driver got the best out of the car when it mattered.
That was a lot of fun, a bit of an adventure, but Yeah, typical for street circuit. It's trying to find, when you've got a bunch of cars out there trying to qualify, it's, you know, finding a spot. And twice I started a lap and I had to get out of it early just because I wasn't going to get clean all the way to the end, and I didn't want to waste what grip you have with our Goodyears on a place like this. So right near the end, we managed to find a spot and got a clear lap. So it was kind of arms and elbows, but it got the job done.
The 37 car managed to clinch pole for the 6.75 class, whilst Johnny Herbert's first impressions of the circuit here were quite good. He thought that it was possibly one of the smoothest circuits that he'd ever driven on. The champion Audi had some understeer in the initial practice sessions, which the team managed to improve on, and in qualifying, Herbert set the 4th fastest time for a Row 2 start in the customer Audi. Meanwhile, in the Panos pit, David Brabham was another to like the circuit, but had concerns with overheating the brakes. His driving partner, Jan Magnussen, had a few incidents during practice when he got to grips with the car on this new circuit, but nothing of any real consequence for car or driver. He went on to record the fastest time, the top spot on Row 2 of the grid. The number 2 Audi of Christensen and Capello was consistently quick all weekend, with hopes of pulling off their 2nd win in a row. Dindo Capello was in charge of the Infineon Audi for qualifying. He brushed a wall on one run, but sustained no damage, but ran out of fuel on his final run of the session that he thought could possibly have been his fastest.
It will be very difficult to overtake, especially if GT car or slower car are fighting for position. You cannot go on the 3rd line on the straight, and it will be tough, sure.
Frank Bieler was predicting the race to be tougher than Le Mans was, and the drivers would have no time to relax. Starting from pole is an advantage, but this race is going to be about much more than just starting from the front.
It's better to start from the front, but it's a long race, so it's probably more due to strategy, you know, fuel stops and everything. But of course I prefer to be first one in the first corner.
The grid is set and the race day conditions are expected to be very hot, both in the air and on the track as well. Sunday afternoon, and the excitement is building in the country's capital as the start of the 3-hour race draws near. As expected, the temperatures are high. It's currently 90 degrees and the track is at around 100 degrees. The spectators that have packed themselves all around this course whilst being baked in the sun will be treated to a racing spectacle here. This is the first major racing event in Washington for 80 years. The street circuit is a short one with concrete walls instead of the bigger runoff areas that a normal circuit would have. The cars will be closer together and the faster men will have to be concentrating on every part of every lap if they're going to get to the finish flag unscathed. The pit lane, after the display of colourful cars and chatting drivers, now becomes a hive of activity and a place of concentration, and the cars prepared to head out on the formation lap in a warm-up for the rolling start. This is then how the grid lines up. Frank Bieler and Emanuele Pirro start on pole in the Infineon Audi R8. Their teammates Capello and Christensen behind them. Ron Fellows and Johnny O'Connell start 12th on the grid, leading the GTS class. Teammates, as usual, behind them. The champion Audi of Stefan Johansson will now be starting from the back of the grid after being penalised for changing a tyre. Out they go then on the formation lap. just under 3 hours. 2 hours 45 minutes is the scheduled time. 1.661 miles per lap, so very short indeed. And Biela leads them away. They've got the green flag and they're away this time. And the Panos very quick up into the first turn. And getting through to take second place is Jan Magnussen. So he's already moved up ahead of Rinaldo Capello. Brian Herter we had in the 51 Panos LMP01. And then Max Anginelli and Emanuele Collard in the 2 Cadillacs. We had 5th and 6th place. So it is Biela that leads after that brilliant first corner move by Jan Magnussen. And Johnny Herbert with a lot of work to do. He's behind Selby Wellman at the moment in one of the GT Porsches, the 911 GT3R car. And a lot of work for Johansson to do. He'll be handing a course to Johnny Herbert later on in the race. Meanwhile, the race at the front is all about the Audi and the Panos. And Dindo Capello, well, didn't see the Panos coming at all, and it is going to be very interesting. Smaller circuit, the fastest part probably between turns 1 and 2, which is the only real straight on the circuit. They're not going to get up to anything like their full speed. There are plenty of overtaking places on the track. You can see it is fairly wide, but it is going to be about grip and strategy. The tyres are going to be important as well. But a good move already from the Panos, and certainly the number 2 Audi has not answered back to anything. Panos 2nd and 4th at the moment with Brian Herter. Of course, his partner Bill Auberlane, will be seeing him later on in the race. But at the moment, it's Frank Biela that leads the running in the Infineon Audi R8. 2 classes of the LMPs. You've got the LMP 900s, the 675s, and then the GTS class, which will see the familiar yellow Corvettes in, and also the Celine and the Ferrari, and also the GTs, with mainly making up from the Porsches. Jan Magnussen staying as close as he can to the back of Frank Biela. No real gradients here. It's a fairly level surface. We're in the pits and we're looking at Chad Block, who's in with the MG Lola, the number 11 car, and there's a problem with the turbo boost. That's what they're looking at now. It's hotting up though in the GT class. Timo Bernhard, number 22, in the Alex Job Porsche, lead Sasha Masson, and Terry Borchella in the Celine is into the pits, not for a stop, but for a stop-and-go penalty. He's been awarded this for passing the number 3 Corvette to take the GTS lead before the start-finish line. And news from the pits is saying that the Celine team feel that the Corvette backed off and de-accelerated, and that is why the Celine went past. So nobody really is going to know the truth about that, but now he's back out on the track and a lot of work to do. There's number 37, that's John Field, set the 675 pole and leads the 675 class now in the Lola MG. He'll be handing over to Clint Field, a young and very talented up-and-coming driver later on in the race for his stints. Ron Fellows, number 3, we just caught a glimpse of him leading the GTS class. There's number 4, second in the GTS class, as the number 50 Panos is already catching and passing. So too the number 2 Audi as well. A lot of traffic, and this is going to be like this for the faster cars all the way round this circuit, all the way round on every lap. They're not really going to get a break at all in this race. There's no real times when they can actually relax. They have to concentrate what they're doing and look ahead and look behind them, as well as trying to keep the pace up. And it is going to be, I'm sure, a race dotted with many, many incidents indeed. Well, there's Ron Fellows getting passed now by the number 2 car. In 3rd place, Dindo Capello taking the opening stint this time. Number 1, Frank Biela, quite a way out in the lead at the moment. The traffic will, of course, open the gaps up when somebody gets a clear track in front of them, but that will come back down again maybe on the next lap once they get into more traffic and everybody else gets clear. But these two have stayed pretty much together on the track so far. There's our race leader, the second car then, number 1, Frank Bieler, leads in the red and silver Audi. We're on board with him now. Comes up and passes another car on the circuit, and then goes into one of these tight right-handers, straight on short straight, and then it doubles back on itself again. And there's one of the BMWs, that's the number 40 of Carlos de Caseza in the M3 BMW. It's being passed by number 30, Stefan Johansson, who's on his way up through the field, made up quite a few places now, heading up towards the top 10, so pretty good run from him, but still a lot of work and a long way to do it. He's going to stand a real chance of catching up with the leaders in the 900 class, but he is going to be quite a way behind them. So it depends on their luck, on how the incidents and the strategies play out. They have filled him full to the brim with fuel to keep him going as long as possible and make the most of it. First, second and third, and Christensen is ahead of the Paynos now. We're on board with Bieler, who still leads the race, but Dindo Capello has got past Jan Magnussen. Down through the gears, got to be careful of that Porsche, just locked its brakes up before. These, of course, are all driving for their own position. That's the Celine Terry Borchella that we saw in the penalty box before. But the difference in the power and the performance of these cars gives them such an advantage. And that's a spin from the BMW. Number 40 has got into a bit of a mix-up and gets passed by the GTS leader. And it's Audi's first and second. Paynos in third place now after being passed by Dindo Capello. They pass one of the other BMWs and go into this first turn. And now through on the inside, a beautiful move for Capello and also Brabham as well. Brabham's got through. So Frank Bieler's suddenly gone from first to third. Very, very quickly, very, very easily indeed. And has he got some sort of problem? Was that just a mistake? And look at this. Magnussen on the attack there, looking for a way through. Couldn't quite get through. Had to hold a different line. That Porsche played a lot into that. But all of a sudden, after being fairly constant for the opening laps of this race, it's suddenly all livened up. So now it's the number 2 Audi. The Paynos of number 50. Jan Magnussen returns to second place, and Frank Bieler, after leading the opening part of this race from starting on pole position, is now down to third place. Well, new circuit, it's been getting better over the last couple of days. Very smooth indeed, as a lot of the drivers have said. A little bit more rubber down. There is only one line on certain parts of this track that you can take. And these coming up now again on the Celine. So catching them very, very quickly indeed. One of the shortest circuits on the calendar this year. And I think this is the second new circuit they've been to. And through goes the number 2 Audi. Clears the Celine, and all difficult moments. Have to keep your head there. Jan Magnussen, cool and calm. And now we should pass the Celine without any problem. And Frank Bieler, of course, will have to do the same. The number 40 BMW that we saw in a spin before is going okay. And first and second place past them now. Frank Bieler's been held up behind the Celine. Just unfortunate where he caught it, but Terry Borchella moves over and allowed Frank Bieler through. Of course, he only has a certain amount of time to do that when the blue flags are out. So number 2 leads the race. He's about to pass the number 42 Porsche. And you may notice on the side a single red light on the side of that number 2 Audi. That indicates that he's leading the class. The Paynos has to slow right down there to pass the Porsche. And the 38 car is spun at turn 3. Stefan Johansson has got a little bit too carried away, but then again, there might have been another car involved, so he's lost a little bit of track time, and we'll have to make that up again now. Hopefully we'll get a replay of that to see what happened, but that is the sort of incident that Stefan Johansson does not need at all. He's lost a bit of time and has to repass the cars. Here he is now, just locked it up. Couldn't see any cars in front of him unless he was outsighted, but I think that was sheer driver error. And the number 7 Cadillac is in the barrier. Emmanuel Collard at turn 1. Well, it doesn't look as if there's any damage. I think he's managed to stop that before he actually got to the concrete wall, and these concrete walls are not forgiving at all. The car looks perfectly okay. So lost a little bit of time again, and here's a replay. Tries to go around the outside. His teammate number 8 is there as well and can't do it. Slams on the brake and just nudges the tyre barrier, but hopefully everything is okay. Little scuff on the front, I think, of the carbon fibre, but that's about all. He got away with that very, very easily indeed. Time will tell, though. He's up against the Celine and seems to pass that all right, so hopefully no problems for the Cadillacs. They've been working very hard on these cars and seem to be performing well. These, of course, in the 900 class. Starts to pull away from the Celine, and the Celine, of course, is going at its own pace, but we seem to have seen it passed many times on this circuit in this race so far. But Emmanuel Collard seems to be quite happy, not showing any signs. Oh, and here's a little tussle between the Celine and the 79 Porsche of Mike Fitzgerald. So the Celine running into problems again, gets underway, and again we'll have to see how much damage it suffered. No damage to the front of it, but again with the heat that's generated, the distance of these races, you can get a little nudge like that. Oh, and this is the number 2 Audi is spun, and so too the 38 car, and they must have got caught up with each other. And number 1's there now, tries to go past but doesn't, and number 2 keeps the lead then. So that was very fortunate indeed that that back marker was just there at the right time, and that has paid dividends for number 2, Dindo Capello, who was very lucky there. Here's a replay of what happened then. He tried to lap Stefan Johansson. I don't think we can point the finger at Johansson, who loses a little bit of bodywork there. It may look small, but that could have a major aerodynamic problem to that car now. Gets it onto the curb. The car's twitching. Johansson didn't see him coming in his mirrors. Maybe he should have done. The Panos goes through. So the Panos now is into second place. They've been in for pit stops, and it's all starting to shake out once more. And the Panos has got 2 Porsches in between him. He's just cleared the Viper, and these guys are racing themselves. They're not necessarily looking for the faster men. And through goes Jan Magnussen on board the 66 Porsche of Kevin Buckler then, and that's the view of the Panos disappearing into the distance. And these drivers really are having to keep their wits about them here. Into the pits comes the race leader, Jan Magnussen. This was not a scheduled stop. It's earlier than originally anticipated. The reason for that is the team have reports from the telemetry of a puncture on the car, and Magnussen is now going to get out. The car is being fueled, and new tyres are going on as well. They can't touch the car until the fuel has gone in. The drivers are allowed to change and help each other, but until the fuel rigs come off, the other team members cannot touch that car. So fuel going in, drivers changing over, and a lot of fuel going into that car. They are hoping with the tyres they can double stint, and that is a problem on the track at turn 3, that is, for Chad Block, the MG Lola. Problems with that. So he's stuck on the course. Frank Bieler now, we're on board with him. He took over the lead when the Panos came into the pits, but he's been passed by Dindo Capello now, who you can just see ahead of him, race leader.
I was very happy with the car. Traffic is so hard, so sometimes the gap would be huge, the next lap, whoop, we'll be back. So I think You know, I think we're in with a shot. I thought we were going to get hosed because of the yellow just after we came in. But looks like we're okay. Well, we're leading again, so couldn't be better.
Yeah, Magnussen, you can tell he's been working hard. And in the pits now, Frank Bieler in the number 1 Audi gets out. Emanuele Pirro will be going in. Christensen is also in the pits. And the number 7 car is being looked at as we speak. Some sort of problem there. The engine casings are off. So that's going to be quite a long stop, I think, for them. This is the race leader, though, now back up to first place is David Brabham in the Panos. And there are parts of this circuit that are quite bumpy. You just saw the Panos jittering a little bit there now. There's the number 2 Audi, and there's the number 1 Audi. So it is Brabham from Christensen, from Pirro. Great overhead view of this circuit alongside the RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C. See one of the very tight hairpin turns, and that is our race leader. Christensen has cleared the initial traffic, will now try to close up on the back of the Panos. The Panos is working very well indeed. Christensen took on fuel and tyres, the same too for Frank Bieler, and the Panos, we know, has done the same.
Yeah, it was quite exciting. I mean, at the beginning it was very good. Then, of course, in the traffic it was quite difficult, and the gap was going bigger, and then they closed up again. So in the end, they had the impression that maybe Dindo might be faster, and they asked me to let him by. But they did not tell me that the Panos was right behind him. So he went through as well, which was really stupid. But then I tried to catch up again, and I think the car was running well.
So that explains the incident we saw earlier when it appeared that the Audi was caught napping, but it was team orders coming into play, but not to let the Panos pass at all. So not much they can do about that now. Temperature on the track is coming up. It was around about 100 degrees earlier on, and it's now creeping up towards, believe it or not, 120 degrees on the track. Well, the number 1 Audi having a look for the inside line, trying to take that second place. No team orders. They are well prepared to race themselves if they get the whiff of it. It will have to be seen, though, whether Christensen can keep ahead of Emanuele Pirro in that silver and red Audi R8 now. The Panos still leading. The fans that are all around this course are absolutely delighted. It's a great thing, of course, for them to have an American car in stars and stripes. And into the pit now comes number 2. The Viper of Mark Bunting is in front of him. And the news is that this is not a pit stop. This is for a stop-and-go penalty. Christensen has been given a stop-and-go penalty for, believe it or not, rough driving. So he has to come in now, make his way all the way to the far end of the pits, the pit lane. He will be pulled over and will have to stop. So there he is now, stop and given the go-ahead, and now he's lost an awful lot of time and an awful lot of track position. Difficult to make up, as we've seen as well, with the amount of traffic. So, number 1 now, Emanuele Pirro, is in second place in this race behind the Panos. More pit stops still to come ahead. We'll have to see how the strategy plays out. A few bits of debris starting to collect off the racing lines now. You always get little bits of rubber marbles from the tyres. As the tyres start to wear down, it just rolls up and rolls off the side, and that's what makes it very slippery if you get off the racing line. Meanwhile, this is the battle in the GT class, and Kevin Butler in the number 66 Porsche is leading 23. Lucas Law, Jörg Bergmeister in the second. Alex Job Porsche is in third place.
It's very hot. The track is very difficult, and we have a lot of traffic. So to drive your own race is very difficult. You have to look out everywhere for the walls, for some parts on the track, and for the traffic from behind and in front.
So all the drivers seem to be saying, as we expected, what the difficulties are. Into the pits now, the number 51 Panos, Bill Oberlane, fuel going on board, tyres, and they're also changing the steering wheel as the rev limiter was stuck on. That's why he's been circulating quite slowly over the last lap. So here now is the Panos, David Brabham on board. The number 1 Audi looking very menacing indeed. Tries to go through the inside line and he's got it. He played that beautifully, fighting to get the power on, fighting to get the grip. And waves there because he knows that Brabham made that very easy. These are all arch rivals, but there is a great sportsman-like behaviour amongst all the drivers in this series. And it is a great atmosphere at all the American Le Mans races, and a pure joy to see the way these guys fight against each other but also work together as well. So lead change then. The number 1 Audi now leads. Emanuele Pirro has the control of this race, leads overall, leads the LMP 900 class. And it's called the LMP 900 because the minimum weight category for this class is 900 kilos. And minimum weight for the 675s is 675. So more traffic ahead now. Corvette sandwiched in there. This is a perfect opportunity for Brabham. He's got the perfect line. He's on the inside this time, and there was nowhere to go. Pirro went the other way round, and Brabham just saw the way it played out. And can he keep this lead? Yes, he does. So the order has been reversed again. The 50 Panos now leads the number 1 Audi, and that was brilliant driving from David Brabham. Well, the team will be delighted now. I'm sure there was a few groans when he lost that position and went down into second place, but he's certainly redeemed himself. That was a spectacular move, and Emanuele Pirro must have been really frustrated to lose that and be balked by the traffic, but that is what we expected all along. So the Panos now has a Corvette in front, should clear this without any problem, pull out now and get the power on to go past the number 4 Corvette. No problems, both cars do that without any major dramas. And they'll just ease away from that Corvette. And the second Corvette behind there in the distance. And there's a crash. I was just about to say we haven't had many incidents. And off goes Adam Mezron and Paul Mears Jr. And Mazon seems to be okay. A lot of damage to the front of that number 70 Porsche. Can he get it out of the way? A lot of debris on the track there. And I think they are going to have to make that a full course yellow. Well, just drags the Porsche out of the way, but it's not going to go that far. He drives it off the circuit, but we are going to have a full course yellow now. And that Porsche is being urged to move a bit further, but it doesn't want to go. Here's a replay then. 3 cars involved here, and it was the 89 car that lost it and spun, and almost an innocent Paul Mears tried to keep out of the way, but got collected with it. So the safety car, all the cars slow right down, have to follow formation. David Brabham leading this race. First car behind the safety car, Emanuele Pirro in second. And into the pits comes Tom Christensen. They can, of course, now come in. And Christensen just came round as the pit lane opened, gets the countdown, and he's back out again. And this is going to play beautifully into the hands of Audi. Brabham, as you can see, is visibly frustrated. The pit lane opened as he went past it, and he's got to wait another lap now to come in and take advantage, and he will be incredibly distraught. Well, into the pit lane, the former leading Panos, and Jan Magnussen back in that car. His work was done for the day, but they put him back in. They have, of course, put tyres and fuel in. And Magnussen will ride the rest of this race now.
I think Pirro got past me, and then I got past him again in the traffic. It was great racing, great fun. The Michelin tyres were just fantastic out there, really consistent. a shame what happened then with when the pit entry was open, because we had gone past the pit. So when that happens, you just get screwed. You end up losing places for nothing. So that's really disappointing.
Well, we're on a green flag situation now. Tom Christensen is number one that leads this race. It's all changed again. All the cars are very close together. Johnny Herbert, number 38. We can see there behind the leading Audi is up to 5th place. So they've caught up with the main men, but they are adrift, of course. A lot of smoke from the number 2 Audi as he comes up behind Milka Duno. The number 30 Lola Judd, and had a long pit stop before to cool down the brakes, which were overheating. And of course that is all going to come into effect later on. We don't quite know how this temperature is going to affect those, and it is another one of those races where you want to be in an open top car. Well, 3rd place is being shown now for the number 2 Audi. The battle on behind as well, the Paynos and the number 1 Audi out on track and fighting their way through the traffic. That was close indeed for Emanuele Pirro. Up through the gears, you can hear the car sliding as he gets the power on. The back end just squirms a little bit before the tyres dig in and get the grip. There's the RFK Stadium on the right-hand side there. We just caught a glimpse of that, and a good view of it now. And Pirro really is trying hard, giving it all that he can at the moment, just trying to get as fast as he can. Down a couple of gears, this tight left-hander goes a little bit wide there. Went very wide indeed, struggling to find the grip. Tom Christensen just went through the race leader. Johnny Herbert, Bill Auberlane in 6th place. Emanuele Pirro there in the number 1 car is 2nd overall. The cars are everywhere, and Pirro is struggling for grip. He must have debris on those tyres. You can see him weaving around when he has a moment, as if he's just trying to clean them up a little bit. That's the only reason that I can suppose why he's doing that, but definitely having grip problems. That's there's no excuse, no reason for that mistake that he made there. There's the number 3 Corvette C5R of Ron Fellows. There is his teammate Andy Pilgrim. They're fighting it out amongst everybody else, and kind of amongst themselves for 1st and 2nd place in the GTS class. 4 classes in each American Le Mans race, of course. A great shot of the thousands and thousands of people that are here at Washington, D.C. to see the American Le Mans make its debut on the course. We can tell you that number 50, Jan Magnussen, leads this race. There he is now. 2nd place is Tom Christensen. This is a replay of Jan Magnussen taking 1st place, and he earned it fair and square, and that was just a beautiful move. Has the benefit of extra tyre grip as well, with new tyres on board that car. And there's Lucas Lohr leading the GT class, Brian Cunningham 2nd, and the 66 Porsche Timo Bernhard is 3rd in the 22 car. But that is the GT leader, and that looked like the 07 Porsche going off track, just running wide, and does just got to turn round now, make his way back out onto the track. There's another car just coming round, and then he'll boot it and get back onto the way. But the GT leader, Lucas Lohr, has got it all going pretty well now. And there is our race leader. That is Jan Magnussen in for his 2nd stint, and it came as a bit of a surprise for him. But it was decided that, being as they were going to put the tyres on, they had the fuel to do that, there would be enough time to change over, and that having had a rest, he would be in better shape to continue and fight for the rest of the remainder of this 2-hour 45-minute race. There's Clint Field in the 37 car, the 675 car, and he leads the 675 class. 56 Brian Willman in 2nd, and Ben Devlin is currently in 3rd place, known as Barry to his close friends. But 37 it is that leads the 675 class at the moment. And circulating pretty much on his own, he's got quite a lead, not hurrying too much at all. And the team have told him he's okay, he can relax and take it easy just a little bit. Has to move out of the way for Magnussen, who comes through. Very close behind him is Christensen. Christensen looking for a way past that Panos. But now is the time to preserve that car. And if the team think that there's any challenge to him, they'll give him the hurry-up sign. So smiles and tension in the Panos pit. And Emanuele Pirro on board with him. Still trying to catch back up again. Through goes Christensen, but our race leader, yeah, Magnussen, going very well indeed, looking very good for him. And it will be a sensational victory if they can pull it off here. And at the moment, there's no reason to suggest that they won't. More traffic ahead, 3 cars we saw there, a couple of Porsches that they've now got to get past. Couldn't be much closer. And through goes Jan Magnussen. Through goes Tom Christensen. And they've been doing this all the race so far. Past one of the Corvettes now, past the number 3 car of Ron Fellows, the GTS leader. Won every race bar the last for the GTS class. They had an extra pit stop at the last round where the safety net in the window came loose and had to pit and have something done about that. Puff of smoke there as Brabham locks it up into that tight turn. They've got a Viper ahead of them. That's the number 44 Marino Franchitti Viper. He's about to get carved up, goes wide for them. Saw them coming, let them through. So no dramas on that turn for the race leader. Got a good drive out of that as well. And David Brabham will be urging his teammate on from the pit wall, watching the action as they go past the pit lane and keeping an eye on the monitors. Little twitch there from the back of the Infineon Audi R8 in 2nd place as he just struggles to find the grip. Everything, of course, on these cars will be very hot, not least the drivers. Severe temperatures in the air for racing, and of course the heat generated by these cars as well are absolutely unbelievable. So it is the Panos that leads. Fingers will be crossed in the Panos team. Don Panos, of course, is the team owner and the founder of this fabulous race series. Had the idea many years ago and went to the Le Mans people and said, we'd like to be officially allowed to run under the Le Mans rules in shorter races, take it to different circuits. And that's what they did. They ran a few races 2 years back in Europe. And plan is to run a race, the European Le Mans Series, next year, and a couple more races after that, and bring it back into Europe as well. And it has been a well-supported formula of racing, both by the teams and, of course, by the spectators who turn out in their thousands and have done probably more out of interest here than actual race fans, of course, with it being the first time in Washington, and what a spectacle it's been as well. So the Celine on the track, Franz Conrad behind the wheel of that, and about to be caught yet again by the leading Panos of Jan Magnussen. And we're on board now inside the number 8 Cadillac. Max Anginelli passes one of the GT cars and going pretty well in 4th place overall. And that also equates to 4th in the LMP 900 class. And this is good news Of course, for the Cadillac team, they had a few problems with the number 7 car earlier on. And again, they've worked hard on these cars. And it's another one of those historic makes, the historic manufacturers that's so good to see in racing. And they're going to be on for a 4th place. And that will be more or less as good as a win for them. At the moment, it's still, dare I say, going to be a win for the Paynos team. The number 50 car out in the lead ahead of Tom Christensen in the Audi. And it stayed pretty much the same. We haven't seen Christensen on the attack at all, whether he's suffering with grip. But we have to remember that these brakes have been so hot. Braking was expected to be a problem with the heat generated here, both by the track and air temperature and the physical demands on the circuit as well. There's no real long straights where you're not touching the brakes, where you can just get a little bit of cool air to cool them down. And of course, every time they come in the pits, no air is passing them at all, and that brings the temperature up. And if you're in the pits too long, well, as you've seen many times before, they can actually catch fire as well. And the Paynos is keeping ahead of the Audis, and such a remarkable difference in the amount of personnel and the amount of budget that the Audi team has in comparison to the far smaller ones the Paynos has, and it is a tribute to them that they are out in front and leading this race. Again, overhead, Christensen, you just see him close up there as he brakes last, but not far to go now. Fingers, toes, legs, arms, everything will be crossed. Prayers will be said in the pit lane at the moment by the Paynos team. And you can't see which Corvette that is, but it's about to be passed by the race leader. Through he goes, and the Audi will be next, and the white flag is signalling the last lap for Jan Magnussen. He won't be thinking about anything else than getting this car over the line at the end of this lap. One more lap to go. Second place it's going to be then, I think, without a doubt, for Tom Christensen and Dindo Capello, a 99 car just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but it's not really going to make any difference to this race now. So again, past one of the GT cars, still carving his way through the traffic. Very soon indeed, the checkered flag will be out to signal this historic win for the Paynos in Washington. There's the olive green Ferrari 550 Maranello. Haven't seen much of that in this race today. We've seen a lot of this Paynos though, and ahead was the 51 car. Hands are up, he's done it, he's crossed the line, and Jan Magnussen is understandably delighted. There's the 37 car, Clint Field in that, the 675 winner, and 12th overall. And Ron Fellows in the number 3 Corvette is 8th overall and wins the GTS class. So an understandably popular winner with the massive crowd. David Brabham and Jan Magnussen take the win in Washington after a very long and a very hard race. The celebrations, of course, I think will be led well and truly by Dom Paynos.
We won today. We had a couple of breaks, but racing is about breaks, and ours came today, and our team just performed magnificently. The drivers did a great job. The team was great, and I just couldn't have asked for more.
Tom Christensen has a 3-point lead over Dindo Capello. John Field is the 675 class leader. Ron Fellows comfortably ahead in the GTS class, and Sasha Masson in the GT class. A brilliant race, and it's over the border to Canada next time for 2 races, and the first at the Trois Rivières circuit just outside Quebec.
Here we go.